Welcome to the Coffee First podcast, the home of conversations that inspire transformation and ignite purpose. I am your host, Che Macheli. Let's dive in. A majority of the people that I have interacted with so far have named personal finance as the area that they want to see the most change in 2024. I must admit I am one of those people. And in this episode of Coffee First, I do have Tonny Mugisha, who is a personal financial advisor. He runs Eiton Capital, which is a financial advisory firm that deals in so many things, including life insurance, retirement planning, estate planning, wealth planning, investment management, etc., etc. And of course, I thought who better else to have discuss healthy financial management for 2024 than Tonny himself. He's here to give us financial management 101 to help set yourself up for a financially healthy 2024. Welcome to the Coffee First table, Tonny. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Che, for having me onto this podcast. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for honoring the invite. And just before we jump into the conversation, it's culture here at the Coffee First podcast that for each and every guest, we have an icebreaker. So what happens is I ask you 3 questions and then you have to answer the questions within 5 seconds. Don't worry, I'm not wicked. Very simple questions.
All right.
Question number 1, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Question number 2, laundry or dishes?
Dishes.
Why do people run away from laundry? What's wrong with laundry, Tony?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I would go for dishes any day.
Well, I totally understand where you're coming from. Question number 3, this is the last and final question. If it wasn't personal finance advisory, what career would Tonny Mugisha have taken?
Well, I think I would probably be in hospitality business.
Oh, what? Wow.
Yes. It's a passion of mine.
Keep it at bay. I don't think you should throw that away. You do have a very hospitable and welcoming personality.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, those are the 3 questions. Welcome to the table. Tonny, first of all, I always like to learn from experts' mistakes. You know, whenever you see a motivational speaker, you know something went wrong in their life and now they're advising people how to not take the path that they took. So when I see a personal finance advisor, Tonny, I know that there's a financial lesson that you learned in your life that turned you into a personal finance advisor. So I want us to start off by, just share with me an experience that gave you what you would term as an unforgettable financial lesson in your life.
Che, thank you so much. I mean, you're right. As we're moving through the different stages of our lives, we take some decisions that we look back and say, wow, I wish I knew better. So for myself, I think earlier on in my career, I tended to focus so much on fixed assets. So I focused a lot on accumulating assets as opposed to accumulating income. So what happened is I went on buying, just like any other Ugandan, buying lots of pieces of land across different places, hoping that at some point in time I should be able to liquidate them out and be able to do other alternatives. But even then, it looked at the safest option for me because of the kind of work I was doing, requiring me to be at work almost 8-10 hours a day. I tried out business and partnerships and didn't work out best. So I said, what's a safe way for me to really put aside my investment into various assets, mainly plots of land, with an assumption that I would be able to liquidate at the rightful time and explore other opportunities.
Right.
So I think for me, that is one of the unforgettable financial lessons, because later on, when I really wanted to explore other ventures, what I actually thought was an easy place for me to liquidate. In fact, until maybe after letting go of about my 4th asset, is when I got to know that actually land is not really a liquid asset. It's not as easy as you think that when I want to let go, I actually have a ready buyer.
Right. I do believe that finances and personal finance is an area that many people are looking to, get smarter with, because of, I know you've seen what's happening with economies, you've seen what's happening with currencies. And so a lot of people are looking to make better decisions concerning their finances. Can you just share 3 major money mistakes that many people make? And of course, just counter that with 3 money habits that someone can pick up to grow and secure their finances in 2024.
Well, I think for the 3 major money mistakes, I think the first one that comes off cuff is that most people really stack up about 50% of their total net worth into fixed assets. What do I mean with that? I think even before I talk about the net worth part of it, actually many people don't know their net worth. If I ask anyone, what's your net worth? Many people would struggle. If you really don't know your net worth, you can't even know whether you're making a wrong investment decision or not. How do you know your net worth? Being able to say, Che, by end of this year, I'll be so much, or maybe I'll be this age. And after the age of, let's say, 30, what's that I've been able to accumulate for myself in terms of value? Meaning I'm able to look at all my assets and put a value to them and also lessen off my liabilities. So that would give me my net worth. The second one is, of course, if you don't know your net worth, then you can't know what percentage is in fixed assets and which is not in fixed assets. 1 and 2 really go hand in hand. And then the third one is using debt to build wealth. Many people assume that you can actually use debt to build wealth. And again, it is something we can go over and over again, but from a financial perspective, I've seen very many people who have really tried to do, unless you do it with a professional. And even then, they don't know how much debt is good for me, how much debt is bad for me. Those three things, and maybe just to throw in another one, probably is not having life insurance as part of your portfolio.
I love the fact that you've brought up the life insurance one. And I know that your niche and your specialty is in insurance. I'd like us to dive into life insurance. To be honest, many people still do not see the importance of life insurance. Maybe it can be accounted to ignorance. Maybe it can be accounted to just maybe having no sense of urgency, and I'm glad that you're actually here to talk about that. To somebody out there who is listening, who still has not got themselves a life insurance cover, why should people actually consider getting a life insurance cover?
Well, the thing is, life insurance is part of risk management. As financial advisors, when we are actually guiding our customers, as we are planning for them through the different stages of their lives, one of the things that we do is risk management. We're able to ascertain what risks are out of our control as we're having these perfect plans. What are those risks that we do not have control over? Now, the thing is, why many people are not really paying attention to life insurance, I think the number one reason is because lack of knowledge. And I'll tell you, Che, you know why? Because it's not something that's actually taught. Even the MBA classes, you rarely find someone covering on the purpose of coverage. Yet it's so critical. I just give you a simple example. Between me and you, Che, we know we should take 2 liters of water a day. Is that correct?
So I've heard.
So you've heard. But who said that?
Good question. I know someone who needs to hear this.
Everyone will probably tell you, maybe a doctor did that or this person said that, which is correct because doctors do say that. When it comes to financial planning as well, I want to use that same analogy because it speaks directly into financial planning. The same approach you have of knowing that you should take 2 liters of water a day. We know it keeps you healthy and, you keep hydrated and the benefits comes with. That's on the health part of it. Same thing with financial planning. When we talk about financial planning, we can't talk about complete financial planning without having life insurance within the pack. Why? Because it's the only thing that can safeguard us from things that we are not certain when they're going to happen. And what are those thwe things like critical illness, things like permanent disability, things like terminal illness, things like death. Things that we don't know when they're going to happen. When we talk about education, you probably know 10 years from now, your child's going to be in primary school, or maybe 18 years, they're probably going to go to college. But these are the 4 things I've talked about. None of us knows when they're going to happen. You have to transfer the risk. And that's when instruments that we use to be able to transfer risk come in, and life insurance is only one of those.
Thank you so much for expounding on that, because there's many people who really, I believe it's just either not seeing the long term and thinking of them, like just looking at their life where they are right now and saying, I'm single, I don't have a family, I don't have children, I don't have that kind of responsibility that requires me to have a life insurance cover. And so I do agree with you that when it comes to financial planning, just having that sense of urgency and just having the wisdom to be able to manage risk that comes with, uncertainty that comes with life. And so thank you so much for sharing on that.
And now, maybe to clarify on that, Che, as well, you see, that comes up a lot where young people tell me, but Tony, I don't need a life insurance. The things we talked about can happen either you have kids or not, whether you have parents or not. The thing is, what will replace your income in case you're not able to do what you want? Because again, as an individual person, you're probably able to live your livelihood because you have an income. So what happens when that income is not there because of a limitation, which limitation has been caused by those elements that are uncertain? Things like being permanent disability. Yes, for you to be critically ill, you don't need to be married, you don't need to have kids. We are seeing very many terminal illness coming in young people. So those people, when they're trying to go out through, trying to manage the situation they have been in, maybe they've been diagnosed with a critical illness. They need income to be able to keep going. So what instrument do you have in place that's able to do that?
Now, of course, you're a personal financial advisor. And could you just share really just basic financial practices and principles that should govern one's personal finances? Really, that should be law if somebody wants to see some level of financial stability or even growth in their finances, in their life.
All right. So I think, with these 4 that I'm going to suggest, they're very fundamental that you don't even need to meet any other financial advisor. If you're able to come up with these 4 or have a kind of discipline to get you started on this journey, you should be good to go. The first one is having a distribution matrix. What do I mean by this? A distribution matrix is any income that comes to you needs to have a sort of a distribution matrix. Why? Because a human brain or our brains are designed to have a certain sense of order. A distribution matrix is any income that you're getting, right? Let's take it a certain amount of money, but we assume that amount of money is 100%. So that 100% has to be broken down in a specific matrix. And you cannot do this segregatively, meaning my salary, I'll do this, and my side hustle income, I'll do this. It needs to be standard. The reason, Che, why you easily get into your car and speak on the phone and able to drive back to or wherever you want to go is because your subconscious mind is actually at work. Now, the same thing happens when you have a distribution matrix. When you do have a distribution matrix and you say, out of my 100%, I'll distribute 10% to my tithe, 15% to maybe life insurance, 20% to savings, 15% to investments, and 40% to living expenses. So you have triggered your mind to make sure that whatever income comes in, that income is 100%, and that's how it's going to be distributed. Now, it is in those different buckets or different options that you'll be able to use the apportionment you've allocated to assign the different activities. So if you say my living expenses is anything that you need to live. Your rent, your fuel,
bills, and et cetera. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know that when I'm going to talk about savings, I'm going to save in which instruments? Again, some people can save maybe in circles. Others can save maybe on a checking account. Same thing goes to investments as well. The difference between the savings and investment is, savings, you cannot lose your money. Investments, you can actually lose your money. Because when people ask me, Tony, why do I have to save and then an apportionment for investments? Because they are totally different. And when you have this matrix, it becomes very easy for you because you've set a limit. Because with this threshold, you're able to know, am I saving too much? Am I investing too much? Am I spending so much on living expenses? The top 2, which is tithe and living expenses, are things that you should not really touch. I would recommend that 10% is tithe, 15% is life insurance. Right. The second one is keeping track of your investment portfolio and making sure it's balanced. What do I mean by that? I mean that, remember, if we had a conversation earlier that you need to actually know your net worth. When you know your net worth and say, for example, my net worth this year, as Che, I'm worth maybe 200 million shillings. And next year, I plan to grow this by maybe by another 100, so that's 300. Or I'm planning to double it. Whatever you want to do, it's your role to make sure that you work with the professionals to make sure that they draw out a map on how you're going to be able to do what you want to do, whether to double it or to go 50%, 100%. It's really up to you. Now, the thing is, for you to be able to grow that number, you need to know what's your net worth. And now, once you actually know your net worth, then you don't stop there. You're able to ask, okay, this 200 million, where is it exactly? Is it in property? Is it in equities? Is it in bonds? Is it in commodities? Is it in cash? Where is it? And is it balanced anyway? By balance, is it not leaning onto one side? Remember when we started this conversation up, I said, at some point in time in my life, I found myself leaning heavily onto, or my portfolio being so much leaning on fixed assets, on property.
Yes.
As you are making whatever adjustments you need to make throughout your plan, you need to make sure that you have a balanced portfolio. All right. And the third is to making sure that you have enough coverage. And what's enough coverage? Enough coverage should be at least 3 times your annual spend. And you need to review it annually. So meaning if I'm spending 1,000,000 shillings every month, all right? So 1,000,000 shillings times 12, which is 12 million shillings, multiplied by 3, which is 36 million. So my coverage, meaning the kind of cover I should take from my life, should be at least 3 times my annual spend. So it should be 36 million. And I need to review it every year, because if it moves, 1 million changes to 1.5, it's no longer actually 36 million. So I need to make sure that as I make that different journeys up in my life, I'm able to make sure that I have enough coverage and it's sufficient. And lastly, you need to make sure that you have a professional to work with you on this journey, because if you don't do this, you're really going to...
You need someone to make some smart money moves for you.
Absolutely.
Another very important thing that you brought up was the issue of example and saying, 10% is going to go to tithe. And I want to talk about giving and tithing, where people are justifying not tithing, and saying, instead, I'll just use the money to go and do good, to just give it away. However, there is an expectation of us as believers when it comes to tithing. Could you kindly expound on the importance of that particular practice and principle, that is tithing and giving to one's personal finances?
So, something very interesting. Every year we take time to look at our customers' statistics. I mean, to be able to pick very good practices and to be able to pick things that seem to be working for others and try to find out why. For the element of tithe and like you shared, it's really a choice. It's a choice, but it's very clear, I think, in the Bible where it says, I don't think there's any other part in the Bible where Lord says, test me in this. And
yes.
It's the only part in the Bible that, that if you're a believer and really God is telling you, test me in this. I mean, it will only be realistic that you give it a shot. But one of the things that's very interesting is we have noticed the progress of a number of our customers, and the ones that seem to really take the element of tithing, irrespective of their religion, seem to be progressing way ahead of the others. And I can't give you the reason why, but I want to believe that things for God are really God's things. And from a financial perspective, if you want to look at the financial perspective, if you ask me from a financial perspective, this is a biblical aspect or a principle. And myself as well, we have really seen a lot of change since we started tithing, not only for individually, me and the family, but also for the business. And I can tell you that there is something in tithing that not any other financial planner can tell you that this is what the financial doctrine says or this is what the principle is, but it is something that is worth a try. At the end of the day, the way to look at it and the way I look at it, Che, is everything that we have, we've been blessed, not in our understanding, not in our wisdom, but to the one that gave us the abilities to be able to do what we do and to be able to get that income. So if they can give us that, how much more can they give us?
That is so true. And, it's really, I believe it was Apostle Moses Mukisa. I was listening to him sometime and he said, give God your first and your best, not your last and your least. Malachi chapter 3 verse 10, where it actually talks about God telling them that they had robbed him, and he told them, bring the whole tithe in the storehouse. And it actually goes to tell you what God will do when you bring the tithe into the storehouse, that he will pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it, that he will prevent pests from devouring your crops, and your vines in your fields will not drop their fruit before it's ripe. So basically, it's not a surprise that people who actually practice tithing or honor the Lord with their substance through tithe are actually thriving.
It's a principle, and I'll tell you, one of my clients is a Kenyan and is a theologist, and we were one time having a conversation as we were doing his annual review about the issue of tithe. And he told me something that was so profound. He told me that, Tony, don't look at it as just a tithe. This is the exact example he used. He said, Tony, when you get your 1 million shillings and you apportion that 1 million shillings as you wish, yes, you can make a provision for the tithe, but give that tithe later on, meaning you're probably being paid on 25th. But because of very many demands, when the money hits your account, you start to take care of your rent, you start taking care of the other things. They come into Sunday, you actually take out the tithe. He told me, that's actually not a tithe. Yes, the intention is good, but it has not been executed to the principles. Again, many people actually do tithe and don't tithe it correctly.
That's interesting. Because I know very many people who actually have multiple streams of income and maybe the payments don't come in at the same time. So for convenience, what they do is they put aside 10% of each income that comes in. And then when they go to church, they're able to carry it at once. You know, of course, there's been development in technology where money can be wired digitally to whichever storehouse it is that you subscribe to. However, I am interested in knowing more about this. May I ask, did he let you know the correct way he believes that money should be tithed?
The thing is, so I asked him, so how should it be done? And he told me, Tony, as and when the money comes in, the first distribution, and it has to actually be a real distribution, not an assumed distribution. And that 10% has to actually be tithed away. And only then does the principle apply.
Yeah, giving God your first and your best. Thank you so much for sharing and taking time basically to come and share your wisdom here on the Coffee First podcast. Now, I do know somebody's listening to this and saying, you know what, 2024 is the year that I make a change. And Tony just might be that guy. So if anyone would like to reach you and consult and also, you know, just take advantage of your services, just let us know how and where they can reach you.
All right. So our office is on Cashier Mall. So we run 2 offices. We run an office on Acacia Mall, 4th floor in Kamwatcha. You can't miss it. It's only on one Acacia Mall in Kampala. But we also have an office on Oracle Towers in Nairobi, in Westland. You can also reach us on email, which is Tony@eitoncapital.com. Tony with double N at Eiton Capital is EITON capital.com. And my number is 0752103996. Sometimes I don't pick up the phone calls, but a WhatsApp would be of good help. And then if you need any clarity, I should be able to to give some clarity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tony. I also realized recently you're a content creator. Tell us where we can find you on social media.
Wow, yeah, I had missed that out. So we on Twitter we run Tony Fin Advisor with TONNY Fin Advisor, which is FIN Advisor. So same thing we run for. It's the same that we run for Facebook, and on LinkedIn I'm there as Mugisha Tony. Instagram as well, we're there as Tony Fin Advisor. So I wish we can connect and see what more we can share and learn from each other.
All right. Thank you so much, Tony. It's been a blessing and a pleasure having you. I do hope that it is not the last time that we will be having you here. But for you who is listening, I hope you did pick something up that is definitely going to change and shift your finances this 2024. Let 2024 be the year that we implement a change. I heard a wise man once say, money comes by favor, but it stays and multiplies by wisdom. So whether you're in employment, whether you're a business owner, in whatever way that finances are coming your way, I believe that 2024 is the year that we should look to be good and faithful stewards of the resources, financial resources that the Lord has blessed us with. And even as the Bible tells us, the Lord loves a cheerful giver. So let's honor the Lord with our substance. Give to the Lord what belongs to the Lord. Seize each and every opportunity that you can to be a blessing to those who are around you. If that means giving to the work of the advancement of the kingdom of God, well and good. If that means giving to the less fortunate, if that means giving to the poor, giving to widows, giving to orphans, then do go ahead and seize that opportunity. Because as King Solomon writes in the book of Proverbs, he who refreshes others, so shall he be refreshed. Thank you so much for listening in. My name is Che. This is the Coffee First podcast. Catch you in the next episode. Shalom. Thank you for listening to this episode of Coffee First. I want to hear from you. If anything stood out for you from this episode, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also keep up with all the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.